back. Let us begin.
My first question, are society's problems an outward manifestation of our inner state?
No. It's a somebody's surprised. It's a manifestation of a confused state, not an inner state, but a confused state, overmixed state, overripe state, right? But not really the inner state. The inner state is not manifest enough in society because it's not recognized as such. The inner state, having anything to do with the spiritual state beyond the psychic realms, is a much deeper state. It's more the dissolution of what we call society in the forms that it tends to operate or consider itself functioning as reality.
So then, is society a reflection of the ego?
The society is not as much a reflection of the ego as much as allowed to be what it is because of its mother, the earth.
So does it follow that society reflects the inner life of mankind? Not really, is what you're telling me.
Not really. No, not really. It seems to reflect a little bit of everything and maybe too much of not the real thing. So when we're speaking about the inner life, we could, at best, for the sake of humanity, understanding humanity as a collective consciousness, which is not necessarily too bright, right? Not necessarily too dark, right? But somewhere in the middle, relatively safe, but relatively dangerous. We're talking about psychology. That's not an inner state. There's a very obvious material state, right? It's an outer state. It's a body-mind state. It's not an inner state. For the sake of clarification, it's not an inner state. Okay? We are concerned as practitioners with the inner states, the states of peace. Society is not in any way, shape, or form reflecting that as much as it ought to be. Of course, many people are practicing in these ways, and so all the more power to them. But society in general is not in any way responsible at this time as a world complex in reflecting the inner state of peace. No. Anything but that. But again, beyond this, humanity is the product, not of itself, but of the earth. Keep that in mind as we get deeper.
So is physical violence separate then from psychic violence, or are they one and the same thing?
There are two different dimensions. They are related, yet they are different. They're not similar, yet they are the same.
So this leads to a question on the subject of 2012, which a lot of people are focused on as perhaps some kind of ending or perhaps beginning point for the world. Would you comment on that, please?
Well, for peeps, they're always ending and always beginning. And I say to you that what's real is without beginning and without an end. So the obvious is then there, right? What's your question now?
My question is, what do we have to look forward to in 2012?
What do you have to look forward to right now? That's more your reality. More the same. More the same. Right? And since you have self to look forward to, you have more of the self to look forward to. If you have selflessness to look forward to, then you have selflessness. Right? Selflessness to look forward to in whatever time. Right. Very good.
Is people's dark side then something to be recognized or confronted, or is this something just simply to be ignored in the spirit of transcending it?
The dark side is part of the light side, so-called. So you have to recognize whatever it is that your programs are. Programs are programs. They're both dark and they're both light. They're programs. And so that is really the case for practitioners in this work. is not so much seeing the dark side or the light side, because they are programs of perception. So we have to undo our programs of perception in order to get to the real side, as opposed to the real and unreal side, the true side, so, as opposed to the untrue and true side. Yeah. We have to get beyond duality first. But before we can even get to that point, we have to experience some degree of renunciation. If not, you're just victim of the mind, and everything that comes with the mind as being part of the more or less material element of the earth. Now you are the earth. Okay? So the problems and the solutions are part of the earth, which begins and ends, which is the point. The point of the idea of wisdom, more so than information, rather than transformation being the case. The transformation is key to the possibility of wisdom. So you need some renunciation, which means you're no longer interested in the world of duality, of the material world, the earth world. And then there's possibility, actually accessing some peace, which is not a state opposite stress. Peace is not the other side of stress. Peace is not peacelessness. Peace is peace. The peace that is opposing peacelessness is no peace at all. Okay? Very good.
So the programs, where do they come from? Do we create them ourselves? Do we accept them via agreement? How do we get programmed?
It's not how you get. You are programmed, because your body is an organism. It's programmed already. It's not that you have very much choice in the matter. The earth is a program. It's already existing. You're born of that. You think you're born of your mother, but you're born of the earth, which gave birth to your mother's 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 mother, and so on. And we say that's the theory right now. Okay? And this is an important thing, because what we're seeing there is a timelessness. Who knows? We get back to who knows. The mind can't know certain things. That's the beautiful, and that's the ugly. So you can know and you can't know at the same time. And that's what practice is about, knowing how to not know, and then not knowing how to know. And putting those together so that what's left is what? So you are programmed to wonder what to know and what not to know. These are programs. Why? Because you're born of the earth, which is darkness and light and everything else imaginable, see? Perceivable. That's the great news, is that you're an earth being. See? That's the great news. But it's also the bad news, right? Because you don't know that you're an earthling to the degree that you are an earthling. And so that's the question mark. See? What level of knowing, if it's possible, can you know your earthlingness to the degree where you're happy about it? Because the more you know about your earthlingness, the less happy you're going to be, because of the nature of the earth. The earth is full of what? All the things the earth is, right? Creation, or the appearance of it, or the perception of it, beginnings, right? Preservation, survival, and then non-creation, destruction, recreation, endings, see? Endings. All part of the earth as matter, see? You understand earth as matter. Okay? And mind, if we can use that, creates matter. Mind creates matter. Matter is mind creating matter. This is part of it. Earth, it's materialization, crystallization, and mind is that too. So that's why the idea of no mind is very important to counter. What mind is, it's like spirit is to counter matter. See, the counter of it. That means perhaps the essence of it, which means it's the potential of it, which means there's possibility to be more than what appears as any form of matter. We are materialized earth beings. So, but built into that is mind, right, which perceives itself as matter, which creates something else. So mind creates matter, and then what does matter create? So then it's a matter of what matter creates. The matter may create space, the non-matter, and this is also very useful. And then maybe that space creates something else. Maybe the space creates energy, which in turn creates time, and we have this wheel of perception going on here, so, which is part of being programmed. All of it is karmic programming. So, and then the function of the mentor as awakened beyond the programming, then you start to realize, well, you're not necessarily bound to such materialistic, cyclic, sort of self-building programming relative to the universe. And then there may be no universe, which is very good. No universe. Right? The universe of no universe, the no world. That's the function of the fire here. That's its primary function. Is not to validate that which is already excessively validated, or even catastrophically validated, in terms of the material as being the real. So here we have the transcendent as being real. That's the reality beyond real and unreal. That's the function of the fire, especially since even the transcendent is burned in the fire. And even the fire is burned in the fire. It's that subtle, it's that perfect, it's that profound.
So are we in a position to reject our programming, or are we in a position only perhaps to transcend it?
But rejecting the programming, like accepting the programming, is mind stuff. You are the programming. It's not about rejecting it or accepting it. You are it, so you have no choice but to understand it. So you come to terms with understanding what it is you want to be beyond it, so that you can outgrow it as a program. See? So everything here is to be outgrown. But you can't outgrow, just like you can't master anything unless you understand it. You have to know what it is. And then you master what you know, what it is. Once you have whatever the technology is or the mechanism is understood perfectly, as much as that can be done. And then there may be, because of the idea of mastering and having the potential of growth beyond growth to the infinite, then it can be transcended. That means made to be non-existing, or allowed to be itself as non-existence.
Would you call fear a program?
Fear is a very good program. It's a great program. It's a very promising program. A lot of things are done in the name and because of fear. People are afraid. And so fear has its place. It's a serious program. When it is imaginary fear or unnecessary fear, then it becomes as much an obstacle as anything else. It becomes a program of slavery, but it can be a program for growth. People are afraid of the dark, and we have light. And here we are, in a room full of light, and we're okay with that. So light and dark do not prevent us from enlightenment. So we have a choice to enjoy the comfort of light or not, or wait till the sun comes up, right? With a whole other level of light.
It's been said that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Would you comment on that?
Well, fear is nothing to fear. What we have to fear is maybe ignoring what it is. So ignorance is the thing to fear more than anything else. If fear, that means it needs to be undone. Ignorance has to be transformed into awareness. See? Avoidance has to be transformed into being. See? Reality. Not avoiding it. So the small mind has to be released or allowed to burst into the big mind. See? The finite into the infinite. See? So growth is really the difference between the materialist and the true spiritual type. See? Which doesn't believe itself as form, nor does it believe itself as slavery. It believes itself as possibility.
Do we need understanding and recognition in order to release from and transcend from programs?
Yes, you need it if you don't already have it. Some of us are programmed to already know it. It's like some of us are programmed from the early part of life, earliest stages, to be able to play music. Doesn't mean we're better. Just means you start out doing things differently. See? Starting out with the music, let's say, or a talent or a gift, so-called gift, in my case is a curse. But it's a curse I could use and turn it into a gift. And so that's what we need to do, is take the limitations, transform them into possibilities in every case.
You've used the expression before, learn it to burn it. Can we burn it if we don't learn it?
No, you have to learn it. Burning is part of the dissolution. See? And the dissolution is counter learning to unlearn. See? It's counter that. So, see, we have a problem and then you have a solution, which is part of a kind of a mechanism. You have a lot of problem-seeking people and you have a lot of solution-seeking people, but they're the same. You understand? Once you get beyond the problem and the solution mechanism, you have then appropriate dissolution, which is about the burn. Burn is the dissolving of all dichotomies and going beyond them altogether, like no dichotomy. So there's no one side, no the other. The burn means zero, zero, which means peace. Not as a word, but the presence of silence as peace, as this kind of ecstatic bliss, peace, original peace, self-existing as such, peace, our true nature, which seems like we are able to abide as that when everything seems to be going okay, all our mechanisms are chilled for a moment, we are abiding as heavy as, you know, a dog pulling peach seeds. Better out than in, you understand? Go ahead.
So then, are we served by learning? In other words, should we seek out things to learn in order to
Only
learn?
certain people need to know what they need to learn. So then the requirement for learning becomes relative to what a person needs to know for their own purposes. There are many things people need to know. And in a world that's dominated by materialistic kinds of requirements for survival purposes, then what you need to know is how to survive rather than who you are. Here in the spiritual field, especially in this particular field of realization by fire, then what you really need to know first of all is who, if you can. It's a big question mark. Who you are, who it is, then what it is, which pertains to who, and so on. And when that is wanting, in terms of you not knowing enough, you remain in the symbol of the question mark. In both cases, as a question and an answer, then you need a mentor to help you to come to the term of no more learning, and then the burning begins. Okay? And since everyone is by law at a different level of unfoldment, then not anything applies to everybody. Not anything applies to everybody. We can say, oh, we are all God's this or whatever. That doesn't apply to other people. They don't know that, they don't believe it, they don't want to hear it. So it's not true. It's not true. Say peace, maybe. Maybe there's more common reality with the feeling of peace. Maybe. As an occasional possibility. Maybe. Maybe some people have it because all beings have a need for love and they recognize it, like they have these desires for things that may be common to all peeps, like for food, right? Biological urges and instincts are pretty much common across the field of existence, right? And so these things we can say, well, there's more reality there than, like in the terms of the word God or whatever that could be. Say, yo, we need water. Oh, everyone's going to agree on that. All humanity, regardless of their language and culture, is going to say, yes, 100% we need water. It's a vital, functional need. We need air. We need to breathe. So when we're talking about reality, and we're saying, oh, spiritual realization then requires learning how to breathe properly. And all beings can relate to that. And so real spiritual fire has to do with recognizing certain fundamental, if not critical, requirements for our existence. Learning how to breathe into peace. It's doable. Next.
Well, a lot of people look for things to learn in the occult or hidden teachings. I'm wondering why certain teachings are kept hidden. Is it because people aren't capable of learning them?
Well, you have occult teachings, and they may, because of the nature of what they are, they may need to be hidden. Spiritual teachings may be called secret teachings because they're incomprehensible. But if there's secret teachings and they're spiritual teachings in the sense that they may be taught here, then it's secret because they are incomprehensible, not because they are putting anything on people. As certain occult teachings may be part of the problem rather than part of the solution of getting beyond teachings, whereas the secret teachings are about getting beyond teachings altogether. You understand? So they're part of the burn. See? The burn is the teaching of no teaching. That means what's left is realization. Not a theory about, or conversation about, or a story about the teachings. It's about realization. And the occult teachings often validate what is dark, what is self-centered, what is, full of darkness in terms of doomsday prophecies. If you don't do this, this is that. See? Which is part of the Earth's conditioning. See? Being afraid. See? And spiritual teachings, and as regards the burn, about undoing that unnecessary and imaginary fear of the boogeyman, the good or bad side of things, which only thinking and bad programming makes real for peeps. Freed up in the stroke of, say, fire, wisdom. You have nothing to fear, no death to fear, and so no needing to hear any kind of doomsday prophecies. God is present if there's such a thing. The Buddha realization is in the moment. It's not in some feared time in the future when we know everybody's going to die, but why is death something to fear, my peeps? Alright? Why be so fearful? Why be so disturbed? Why not be awakened and enjoy your moment? Right? Forever enjoy a moment.
So are people's concerns with things like an apocalypse an outward manifestation of their own inner fear of their own death? Is that really what they're talking about?
Absolutely. 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 The body's here as Earth to have its ending because of its beginning. That's built in. And if you weren't agreed to that, you couldn't be here. You already agreed to it. See? So that's part of it. You were born to die, so that's got to be a good event. Any which way you look at it, it's got to be fantastic. It better be, right? Absolutely will be, no matter how painful, because it's what it is. It's what everything leads to, so it must be. Devastatingly and absolutely real, divine, and something you must pass through. But then that shall pass. All things will pass. That will pass. So why be concerned about that which will pass, since you have already experienced many such passings to be here. Yeah. Be reconciled with your passing now, and find peace at first.
It seems that people who've had near-death experiences experience something similar. There's a fairly common description they all offer. So are we all going to the same reality or
happy hunting grounds? No.
Yes.
Why should we? Are we all living in the same vibratory reality now? No. You can't, because you are a whole different reality. See? You have been made to believe that you are part of the herd, part of the cattle field down here. And that's what society would have you believe, not knowing that something like the words that have been given in the past, in many different ways, seem to resonate something to the contrary. The kingdom is within you. What does that mean? Right? It's a big question. Yeah, it's a big question. Yes, that means that there are many mansions, too many other realities within the realm of existence, the earth world. See? Too much difference for that to be the case for all beings. It's already been said. No one thing is true for everyone, except that you die maybe. But then, even then, we have to mark our words, because not everyone will die the same. Some will die in a blink of an eye, peacefully. Others will die totally dramatically, see? Catastrophically, being blown to smithereens. Huh? but it's all peace. It's all silence. And that's a realization one must get to in order for the machinery to stop, for you to be in the moment, for you to have an enlightenment perception or perspective, right? Which is of your true nature, your original purpose here, which is not to experience as much as to be. Beyond experience, which means you have a long ways to go, and yet there's nowhere to go at the same time. But yeah.
So would you say then that at some level everybody lives in a different world and everybody dies in a different world as well?
Well, we can say universally we all come from the same place, but differently. We all live on the same planet, but differently. And we're all going to where we came from, but differently. It's fair. Very fair. It may be even absolutely true.
So people describe death as the biggest fear or the worst possible outcome. But what would you say is worse than death? Because you don't seem to describe death.
A life that is not enjoyed. A life that is neglected. A life that is forsaken because of stupid programs. A life believed to be nothing more than programs is a life wasted.
There seems to be a lot of things that inhibit people's freedom and increase their programs. One specifically that's developing is the microchipping of people. This is now a reality and now a concern. People are getting microchipped. There's many who fear that this will lead to the end of freedom for humans. Would you comment on this?
Well, those who are here to be free will always be free, as long as they're here. That's the key, as long as they're here. Those who are here not to be free will obviously not be free, until they get out of that program. Okay? Yes? And anything that a human can do is because that's what a human is. And if what a human is not natural, then what is? See, you understand? So what is then natural? If a human isn't natural, then what is natural? The earth is nature in a form of a planet, as it's called. It's an organism. It's a being, right? And this body is born of, into, and through, sustained by earth. And we do not know what earth is yet. In other words, what we are, if we are questioning a microchip which just didn't fall out of the sky, right, comes from the earth, everything. Atom bombs, all of it comes from the earth. The universe comes from the earth too, right? So be well grounded and well founded in the fact that you are earth being, but not limited to that program, but that program is the program of the material universe. Have no doubt about it. Within this program of Earth you have the Sun, all the planets in the solar system, and beyond. And then our eyes are extended to the Hubble platform outside of the Earth and able to see things that have already happened millions, if not billions of years ago, which are part of us. We are not other than that. That's part of us. So, getting beyond the Earth program, then what about the nebula program that we're supposed to be also as much a part of as the Earth? But we have no concept of that yet. So we have a little bit to learn about what the Earth program is before we start complaining about whether or not a human should create a chip and then stuff it up somebody's body part for whatever purposes, right?
Don't things like microchipping and the development of a surveillance society and all these things inhibit people's ability to come to terms with what it is to be an earth being?
Yes and no. What it is to be an earth being is to be a prisoner. So get beyond that. It's a slave. That's why the master's here. Master's here to say, hey, it's all the same. Why? Because someone is not looking at you, not tapping into your phone. You're not a slave. You're You're not a victim. You're a victim of your own programs. You're being the very thing that you are saying you are afraid of all the time. You're being that. Because you're bugging other people. But you don't see yourself as bugging other people. But we are all each here bugging each other. Right? Which is our nature. Just look at bugs. Bugs bug each other. That's Earth. We have to be sincere in our inquiry. Sincere, being true to the Earth, and this helps us to be true to everything else. Go on.
So are there situations where let's say a spiritual being should act in a societal or political way?
They do. They can. They're free to. If they're a spiritual being, they can act any which way they see fit. But that's just part of what a spiritual being is about. So, spiritual being can appear as an ordinary being, can do everything like an ordinary being, but may not be an ordinary being. If they are more than an ordinary being, then they may be considered spiritual, but then you have to define spiritual. So we are speaking precisely and not just merely, verbally, semantically. We have to get beyond that. So what is a spiritual being? If we're talking in the terms of what is taught here, then only an enlightened being is a spiritual being. And then an enlightened being is not an enlightened being.
And so with societies, it would seem all these efforts, microchipping, surveillance, all these controls are attempts to de-spiritualize people. So shouldn't that be something we react against or try to overcome?
You can. You're free to do that. That's your choice. Enjoy yourself. I think it's a good thing for you to do. But for others, they have to tend to what is real for them, which is not to be paranoid, which is not to be concerned, which is to practice transcending such things. And then sharing that, because if you practice transcending such things in the sense of genuine practice, then you're bringing light to others, and this is what keeps the light going, and they resonate with you, and they say, oh, you're feeling light, how do you, what do you do? And say, well, I do nothing, very deeply. I sit here in deep nothingness, right, and do what that is in terms of being light, see? Recovering one's sense of lightfulness, see? And recovering of your true light nature, clear light being, which is a theory until you start to practice and see the results of what that is. And once you have that, then you're off to a whole other thing, because this is an earth station. And as an earth station, you have beings coming in that are already more advanced, already part of the balancement of the microchippers. You have the non-microchippers coming in all the time. And so it's not a war that's going to be won one way or another in the foreseeable future. It's just the nature of the universe. This and that. This and that. The thises and the that's. The these and the them. The those. And the thous. Right? And so that's the magnificence of the process of nature, creating infinite forms of itself, or let's say ultimate being, which then is beyond nature, because it's also not perceivable. It's the non-perceivable side of being, awareness, that creates nature. So mind creates matter, creates universes. So we say, whose mind has created this one? Good question. Your mind. Sure.
So to transcend the darkness and move into the light, is it necessary that we confront and recognize and come to terms with our own individual darkness?
It's good to consider that. And then, if you ask some like this, they say, there's no darkness but your thinking. It's the only darkness. Right? And there's only light which has to be recovered before too long. Right? So everyone's preoccupations with what is other than the sense of light, this intuitive realization of pure lightness, clear lightness and so on. This is urgent for people to come to terms with. Yeah. That's the difference that has to be more or less accomplished now, is the conversion in the recovery, converting to our true nature, not any religion, going back to our fundamental being, which is light, clear light nature, pure awareness itself.
So is the darkness more than our own minds? Would it be our karma as well?
Your mind then is your karma. If you perceive things in darkness as a negative, because darkness could be used as a positive. Say the darkness, that means that which does not see, that which is without. What? That the darkness now I will create for you is that which is without delusion. Can't see delusion. It's darkness. Huh? So then light is the problem. Now darkness, it's good to be in darkness. If the world is in the light, then it's good to be in darkness. If war is in the light, then it's good to be in darkness. See? Creative play. Huh? And yet it's good to be beyond both at the same time.
So then is the goal then not to move into the light, but move into maybe the wholeness that embodies or transcends both light and darkness?
And the goal is to understand what one is, what the other is, and what nothing is at the same time. That's the goal. To come to understanding what programs are. See? Programs. Self-created programming. Self-inherited programming. Because we are awareness that can objectify the body-mind as such and work it, rework it, recreate it. It's our fundamental spiritual capability, our potential. Mind as awareness, in this case higher mind as awareness, creates matter. Boom.
Scientists talk about the morphogenetic field, which seems to associate all minds and offer some kind of communication or connection between them. If this is so, then in talking about transcending mind, are we talking about transcending all minds or simply our own? Or, I'm trying to get it.
Well, if we're talking now in these terms, which means even more superior than the scientists to come up with these really trick terms to reflect their level of theory and recognition in terms of the creative world. We're saying now the ultimate no mind. Because what they're talking about is the so-called resonances between beings in a species. And that's true. So like the resonances between people in a household. There is such a thing. The resonances between a mother and her children, even though they're in different locations. The resonance is there. Yeah. It's a psychic telepathic resonance. So we are capable of that because we are Earth. So in fact, because we are Earth, we are capable of having resonance with every layer of existence relative to the Earth from the beginning, to include everything that's gone extinct. Because we are Earth, we are still resonant with that. Okay? Because we are the form and the no form simultaneously, and thus able to create, and part of the creative process relative to the material dimension, which is what we are, cosmically speaking. Okay? And so, yes, the resonances are there, but because of conditioning and programs to the contrary, making the idea that you're a human and a man and a woman much more the make-believe reality, so that you can serve a society or a government or some kind of tribal or racial agenda. That's why you're out of resonance with all the better things there are to be in resonance with. It's because you're being programmed and you have agreed to the programming to be only that real, only so resonant. That means in darkness to who knows what degree relative to your need. So once you have a need to be free of your programs, you'll start to feel the kind of restlessness that comes with the discontent and the disturbance, that you are in bondage and you need to get free of it, because you know, you have this feeling that freedom is happiness then.
So we are tied to the earth. Is the earth in fact tied to the rest of the solar system and the rest of the planetary connections?
Obviously, because otherwise we'd be like a bowling ball in a bowling gallery, right? Rolling around out of control, just banging into the other planets, you know, in some form of chaos. But that's not the case. Even though many globes are in their orbits in collision with others, which is part of the beauty, right? They're dancing partners, right? All dancing partners. Right? We are dancing together, right? In collision, right? And in dispersion. It's part of the whole process. Yes, but then they're all programs. All of it is a program. This view is part of the programming, reflecting the programming. See? So there's agreement with that, absolutely.
It seems that it's kind of hardwired into us at some level to be rebellious for a while at least, to go through a period of rebelliousness, which may or may not rebel against the programming, but it would seem that that would only be a first step in getting free of things. So I guess I'm asking, is the rebellion yet another program that's built in, that's yet another...
Rebellion is absolutely a program. Remember, if birth is a program, death is a program. Clearly, everything else in between is a program. Except awakening, out of the programs, right? But that may be built in too. But if it is, why isn't it more easily accessible than these other programs? So it's a more remote program, it's harder to access program. And perhaps the best way you can get to that is to be around someone who's awakened out of it, who you start to resonate with, from that deep remote spot in you, from what galaxy, who knows, where you start to feel resonance with this no programming program. And rather than a rebellion, it's a release. It's a release from the gravitational field, saying I can let go of, it's okay to rise above this. It's okay to be above this downward pull, because the balance is the upward pull. That's the balance. The downward pull is just one pull. There has to be the balance. The balance is two pulls at once. So, all sides, not even just two. It's just all pulling from all points, and then all pulling in and pulling away. So then we start to wake up to what's at risk, what's at stake, and what our possibilities are.
So then is resonance with somebody who's awakened beyond the program, does that sort of provide an entry point or access point into their field?
It provides a consideration, yes. So that could be into their field or away from their field, depending on your programs. Because, see, the field here, if we can call this the field, worth any consideration, requires that you let go of yourself and everything related to it. Who wants to do that? That's like a more abstract form of death, which is actually good preparation. Perfect, in fact. Go on.
And so that's the surrender function, is a microcosm of death into something beyond ourselves, which in this case may be potentially the master's field.
Could be. Surrender beyond surrender might be useful. But then it depends on your understanding, which is why you're here. You're here to try and understand programs and what your programs are, because the fact is you have awareness, which is your true nature, more or less taken up completely by your programs. Not completely exhausted, but for the most part, it's as much as most people care to know about, is what they know about. And knowing too far beyond what they know about is a little bit too exasperating for them, because they have to know about what they know about in order to apply what they know, in order to survive in the field that they know is their world. For their families, for their friends, their relatives, for their enemies, and for everybody. See, in their so-called circuit. And so, The idea is to get beyond, by understanding the mechanics, get beyond the field of gravity or the extreme earthliness or earthfulness, and try to balance out your being, right, with the entire event. But the earth is this tiny little, and then when you look out, you see all that, but you're not being any of that. And you're not being the sky. You're not being the sun. You're not being the nebula or nebulae. You're being this little creature. So you have to come to terms with understanding your creaturehood, right? Your fundamental earth-centered, gravity-centered, right? Self-centered creaturehood, and try to undo this extreme process of contraction into crystallization and death. Try to undo that and see if you can recover your lightness of being apart from your heaviness of earth being.
Does understanding of the programs always lead to a repudiation or transcendence of them, or could one get that far and simply say, I see how it works, I'm going to agree to it and stay stuck?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what intellectuals do. They get a good understanding of the programs to be that even more. And then they use it. That's what authorities do. They understand the programs well enough to manipulate other people. That's what psychologists do.
So what methods can people use on their own to begin recognizing and breaking free of their programs?
First thing is to remember you're not any program, but that's a riddle you have to figure out. So if you're not any program, what are you doing being stuck in all these programs? What are you going to do about it? What can you do about it? I would say find the best mentor, who you know beyond a doubt has absolutely no programs relative to the past and traditions, institutions, movements, organizations, and all the rest of that, relative to the present, right? No programs, right? No self-thought mind programs, and relative to the future.
Religions,
good luck.
I was going to say, religions don't seem to offer any freedom from program, or at least they substitute one for another, perhaps.
All they're concerned about are their own programs, right? And they're faith-based programs, belief programs, which for some are good. They're better than the darkness they knew before. So there's a little bit of light there, but I dare say, and need to say, just a little bit of light there. And a little bit of light is not enough. Because there's a lot of history there, and that's not what the mystery is about. The mystery is not about history. The mystery is no history.
Faith does not seem to really play any role in anything you're doing here. Is that true?
You have to know. You can believe. You can have faith. You can have confidence. But you have to know. You have to know. You have to use your intuitive capability of knowing beyond any knowing, or reasoning or rationalizing to the contrary, that you're here to be free, beyond your programs. If you can't know that much, then you have to wait until you do.
Is the intuitive mind just another program?
Absolutely. But not just another program. It's just another program. Right?
Is the master just another program?
Just another program, but not just another program. Just another program.
So, to what degree are we free with this recognition to recreate and choose our programs? Because essentially you're saying everything is a
Well, you see, the thing is, you can change. As I said, the intellectuals have the advantage. They're always manipulating these programs for their own purposes. For instance, you start out as a relative idiot, right, as a child, and you go and you work really hard to get your PhD so that, you know, you think enough so that others can respect you and bow down to you. Okay? And so you have the PhD, and you know you use that. Call me doctor, so people can bow down to you. So there's a lot of arrogance built into that. And that's a program. A program of wielding power over others. And then indulging that so that you are the authority. You're the final word on the high and low of other people. Whether they go into this institution or that institution, whether they are at this level or other levels, who knows? See, this is the racket of education. And so here you have peeps who are egoically motivated to learn. Learn so that they can manipulate others, teach others what they want them to know, and keep them further enturbulated in programs. Because then such beings couldn't be enlightened beings. Because an enlightened being doesn't want you to take them seriously as such. You have to see what you need to see, and do what you have to do with that. And if you feel love, that's great for you. And you know it's loving. Feel peace, and you know it could be peaceful. If you know it's brilliant, then you know it's light. It's light. If you feel creative forces are there, you know it's transformational. But then that's up to you. The enlightened being is not necessarily supposed to be hooking you into their system. It's supposed to be like a flower out there, opening to the sun and letting others come and see it and sniff it or pluck it and eat it if they want.
So language is obviously a program, yet the words we use have different value or meaning depending on the source. The same words you're using on a greeting card don't have the same impact. So how is it that the source changes the value of the words?
It's all about what vibrations you resonate with. It's all about resonance with the source. You can find the most absolute, pure source, and others can't resonate with it because of their system, their vibratory rates, because of their karma, and what dimension of the earth they're resonant with. And that's the law. And it's the same way other people can't convert you into what they're doing, no matter how hard they try, no matter how much money they give you, or how much love they give you. Okay? Can't happen. Because we're different. We're different. We're supposed to be different. That's part of the mystery. We have to reconcile our differences and come to understand the mystery of differences relative to sameness. Where we are one. We're not one in the same way, but yet we are one in a different way, which is a paradox. How are we one in a different way if not the same way? Good, that's your problem. Next.
I just happened to see where it was announced a biologist has created artificial life. He made this announcement a couple of days ago. What do you think the implications or possibilities are with humans creating artificial life?
There's no such thing as artificial life. Call it what you want. Life is life. End of story. Artificial is a thought. It's a word. Life is life. Imagination creates the universes. Okay. What is that? Imagination creates atom bomb. What is that? Just life. Yeah. We have the power. We are the power of life. That's Earth and that's nebulae, right? Billions of suns all together. Imagine. Right. Good questions. I wish we had a good answer here. Or an answer at all. Okay. Okay.
I don't have any questions right at the moment.
Okay, good. From whatever, not from anything, but in the moment.
Just,
in the moment.
I wondered if there are any good programs to include, can enlightenment as an approach toward enlightenment be considered a worthy or a serviceful?
All programs are good. All programs are bad. You have your answer in a nutshell. All programs, I mean, to really put the cherry on top, all programs are programs.
somewhere.
Good question.
Somewhere in this book I was reading, you mentioned about how actually, maybe I have this wrong, I need
Just a
clarification.
question. Yeah, just a question.
Since we are born with programs, and in this process of moving into enlightenment, the programs are still there, but we transcend them, right? I mean, or we maybe learn to reuse them, but the programs are still there.
Some programs may be useful, other programs are deleted. Some programs are deleted, of course. You were speaking about deleted programs in your case before this taping. Question about your programs that have been deleted. Burnt out. They've been burnt out. Maybe you have better words for it.
They just seem displaced, let's say, no longer relevant. Maybe replaced by new releases of updated programs or something that improves the operating system.
If you don't go back to the program, they're burnt out. In a sense, we can say deleted. It's just a word. It means no longer existing, no longer functional, and thus no need to recover it. So, and that's part of the growth process. You outgrow certain programs. Like you figure first grade child has certain programs that you can actually outgrow those. So programs are given to recognize, understand, outgrow, let go of, have burnt from you, right? Be purified and transcended all at once. Not always, Hugh.